Under the scorching afternoon sun, the Marine Corps training ground shimmered like a battlefield forged from heat and dust. Sweat poured down every face, the air thick with the tang of iron and effort. And in the center of that brutal field stood a single woman surrounded by men who didn't believe she belonged there. Private Lena Torres tightened the strap on her gloves. Her uniform clung to her skin, soaked in sweat and grit, but her stance was steady. Around her, a ring of Marines laughed, their voices echoing across the yard like the crack of mockery. "She's gonna break a nail before she breaks a man," one shouted. "Come on, sweetheart, maybe we'll go easy on you." Another sneered. Their laughter stung, but not because it was new. It was familiar. Every joke, every whisper, since the day she'd arrived. Lena's lips didn't move. Her eyes, dark, unflinching, stayed on her opponents. The instructor, a burly gunnery sergeant with a face carved by decades of service, barked, "All right, Torres, 4 volunteers. Show us what you got." 4 men stepped forward. Big, confident, grinning like wolves circling prey, the whistle blew, the first Marine lunged, a freight train of muscle. Lena sidestepped, barely a blur, and twisted his wrist in one clean motion, a sharp crack. He dropped, gasping in the dust. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The second charged, cursing under his breath. A feint, a kick, a sweep, and he hit the ground hard enough to rattle the earth. By the time the third man moved, hesitation had already crept into his eyes. He swung wide. She ducked low, grabbed his arm, and pivoted. He landed flat on his back. The fourth tried to rush her from behind, but she spun, hooked his knee, and dropped him before he even knew what hit him. In 10 seconds, it was over. The yard was silent. The same men who laughed now stood frozen, their pride buried in the dust. The sergeant stared, disbelief in his voice. "Where the hell did you learn to move like that, Torres?" She stood tall, brushing dirt from her sleeve. "My father taught me, sir." He blinked. "Your father, Corporal Miguel Torres," she said softly. "He didn't make it back from Kandahar." The name hung in the air. Every Marine there knew what that meant. Kandahar wasn't a story. It was a graveyard. Lena's eyes flicked toward the horizon. "He told me never to fight for pride, only for purpose." The sergeant nodded slowly, something unspoken tightening in his chest. "And what was your purpose today?" She looked around at the faces that had mocked her, to remind them that strength doesn't come with rank. It comes with respect. He balked. "You heard the lady. Get these men up. That's how discipline looks when it's earned." The Marines staggered to their feet, bruised but humbled. One of them, the biggest, extended a shaky hand. "We were out of line, Torres." She took his hand and pulled him up. "No, Corporal, you were just blind." A faint murmur of approval rippled through the crowd. The laughter was gone, replaced by something heavier, admiration. When the sergeant dismissed them, Lena walked off, the eyes of the entire company following her. For the first time since she arrived, they didn't see a joke. They saw a soldier. That night, the base mess hall buzzed. Someone had uploaded a shaky phone video of the fight. It was already spreading like wildfire. 4 Marines flattened in under 10 seconds. No music, no editing. Just silence and a caption that read, "She didn't say a word. She just taught a lesson." By morning, every corner of the base had seen it. Recruits whispered her name in awe. Torres. The woman who fought like a ghost. The one who made silence look like power. 2 weeks later, Lena stood at the shooting range. Her aim, flawless. But what the others didn't know was that the range was her meditation. Every pull of the trigger brought her father's voice closer. She remembered him teaching her to breathe. "Slow, Mija. The world moves fast. Your mind shouldn't." He had been her compass. a quiet man who believed that real warriors didn't talk about courage, they lived it. Lena was 12 when he left for his final deployment. She remembered his promise, "I'll be back before your next birthday." He wasn't. The day they folded the flag and handed it to her mother, Lena didn't cry. She just stared at the ring her father had worn, plain steel, scratched from service. It was the one she wore now on a chain around her neck. Back at the base, whispers about her had changed. Torres, she's lethal. She's going to lead her own team someday, but not everyone celebrated. Some couldn't stand it. A woman earning respect through silence. During one evening exercise, a group of Marines tried to corner her again. This time, not in mockery, but in challenge. "You think we're scared of you," Torres one spat. "You embarrassed half the company." Lena looked up from her duffel, unflinching. "Then maybe learn from it." The words hit like a slap. The man's jaw tightened. "You think you're better than us?" She sighed. "No, I just think I don't need to prove it twice." Before anyone could react, the sergeant stepped out of the shadows. "Enough." His voice carried command like thunder. "You men think respect is given. You earn it by being better, not louder." He turned to Lena. "Torres, pack your gear. You're shipping out next week for advanced combat school." A stunned hush fell. One of the Marines muttered, "She's not ready for that." The sergeant cut him off. "She's more ready than any of you." That night, Lena sat alone in her bunk again. The barracks were quiet. She unwrapped the chain around her wrist and stared at her father's dog tag. "Got accepted, Dad," she whispered. "Guess they finally saw what you did." She smiled faintly. The silence that once felt heavy now felt like peace. The next morning, as she boarded the transport, a familiar voice called out. It was the same Marine she'd dropped first. He stood tall, saluting. "Bring it home, Torres." She nodded once, a small smile breaking her disciplined composure. Always, months later, the graduation field was filled with rows of soldiers in crisp uniforms. Lena Torres, now top of her class, stood on the podium. Her speech was simple, honest. "I used to think strength meant being loud, but my father taught me that real strength doesn't shout. It endures. It stands still when others shake. It listens before it strikes." The applause was thunderous. Among the crowd, those same 4 Marines stood at attention. When the ceremony ended, they approached her quietly. The biggest one spoke first. "We told the new recruits about you." She raised a brow. "What did you tell them?" He smiled faintly. "That when they laugh at you, just wait, because you'll make them silent." That night, as the sun bled gold over the horizon, Lena stood outside the barracks, her father's ring glinting in her hand. The base was alive again, boots stomping, orders shouted, life moving forward. But she stood still, calm in the noise. She thought of every voice that mocked her, every doubt she had to swallow. Every moment she stayed silent when it would have been easier to shout. And she realized silence wasn't weakness. It was control. Her father's voice echoed in her mind one last time. "They'll laugh, Mija. Let them. Just make sure you're still standing when the laughter stops." Lena smiled. "I'm still standing, Dad." A gentle wind passed, lifting the flag above her head, and for a brief moment she could almost swear she heard a whisper in the wind, his voice proud and steady. "Good, because they need soldiers like you." She turned, walking back toward the training field where it all began. And as the sun dipped low, her shadow stretched long across the dust, unbroken, untouchable. The laughter had ended long ago. But the lesson she left behind was just beginning, because legends aren't born in noise. They rise in silence and teach the world to listen.